All right, we take you now to PG&E headquarters where they're doing a live news conference. Let's listen in.
Over Northern California Tuesday evening, overnight into Wednesday morning. This event will be another California-wide weather event. We do expect a strong and prolonged Santa Ana wind event to develop across Southern California starting about 10 p.m. tomorrow evening and then persisting Wednesday and into Thursday. From what I've seen and from what the National Weather Service down in Southern California has been communicating, this does look like the strongest Santa Ana wind event of the season, with some gusts potentially 70, 80 miles per hour for Southern Californians. So I wish them the best of luck with that event and hope they remain safe. At this time, we are recommending, or we anticipate that we'll be able to recommend an all clear for this next weather risk window that we're going through from about 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, depending on the area we are in Northern California. Again, we'll be monitoring those conditions very closely overnight. And potentially as late as 6 a.m. on Thursday, Halloween in the South Kern County, that will be impacted by those Santa Ana winds coming off the Tehachapi Range down in the south. And of course, these times that I mentioned may change dependent on updated forecast model information, as well as observations from our field crews, as well as images coming from our high-resolution cameras that are placed around the territory as well. To put the two events in perspective, the one we just went through and the one that we're heading into, the wind component of this event looks weaker than the event we just came out of, but the fuels will be drier, and so the fuel component looks a little greater. Multiple federal forecast agencies are aligned that this will be a very high-risk event. The NOAA Storm Prediction Center has issued a critical and extreme fire danger in California that does cover a footprint of 30,000 square miles and encapsulates a population of 20 million Californians, both in Northern and Southern California. And so I just mentioned that to illustrate the kind of widespread nature of this event. To put that in perspective, with the event we just came out of, I believe that number was around 11 million, most squarely focused across Northern California. The Northern and Southern Operations Predictive Services is forecasting high risk of significant fire Tuesday and Wednesday for this next event, and that covers a footprint of approximately 3.8 million PG&E customers. And the National Weather Service is also issuing multiple red flag warnings for this upcoming event already. Have a slide from the National Weather Service Bay Area up behind me that covers a vast portion of the Bay Area. And that footprint looks like it covers a population of about 2 million PG&E customers as well. National Weather Service Bay Area is forecasting wind gusts up to 40 to 65 miles per hour over some of the elevated terrain around the north, south, and east bay. So we will continue to closely coordinate with our federal forecast agencies, the National Weather Service and the North Ops and South Ops Predictive Services on daily conference calls, and we'll be reaching out to them directly on any coordination needs to assure that we're aligned on the timing, location, and the magnitude of this event. And I'll again close with some good news. After Wednesday, after we get out of this next high-risk wind event for Northern California and into Southern California, weather models do not show at this time another offshore wind event through at least the first week of November. Still no rain in the forecast, but it appears we are going to be entering a more quiescent weather pattern. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Keith.
Thanks, Scott. I want to invite Mark Quinlan up here in a moment. I just want to note that PG&E had a contractor who worked for us last Friday night who apparently lost his life. He was on an elevated road doing some work in Humboldt County and was involved in a vehicle, appears to go over the side of a large elevated area. So just wanted, I know that started to pop in the media, just wanted to acknowledge that The contractors who work with us, in addition to our employees, are all part of our family. So that's something we take very seriously. We wish that individual's family, our best wishes, and that's a terrible and horrible thing to go through. And so we just want to acknowledge that here at the top as we found out about that. So with that, I'm going to invite Mark up to give us the rest of our operational update.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Quinlan. I'm the incident commander for the October 26th Public Safety Power Shutoff event, and I'm here to provide an operational update. So to start, at one point or another across a broad time frame, there were approximately 970,000 customers that were impacted by this event. We received all clears from a weather perspective, meaning that conditions improved and we believed it was safe to begin restoring our system beginning yesterday for a few of our geographic zones, with the all clear coming for the rest of the system this morning at approximately 0700 hours. This was a little earlier than expected, and that's good news for us because it allowed us to begin our patrol and restoration process this morning at first light, and we had a full day of restoration activity. Made some good progress. As of 5 o'clock, 1700 hours, we've restored between 375,000 and 400,000 customers. That's at a rate of between 35,000 and 45,000 customers per hour. I made reference to that at last night's conference. We're exceeding those numbers that I had brought up yesterday. Some of that is directly correlated to the size and scope of the event, with larger event footprint, more customers, more resources, and so we're restoring more. And that's good news for us and good news for the community. As it sits right now, at 1700 hours, we have all in about 630,000 customers out of service, either through PSPS or through emergent cases of trouble, just wind-related damage. That was on a total customer count as of last night at the peak of about 1.1 million. And as mentioned, with our restoration efforts today, we've gotten down to roughly 587,000 customers remaining of the 970 that were interrupted from PSPS specifically. Resources that we used to facilitate our restoration progress so far. Number one, we had slightly over 6,000 field resources out there working. We had between 40 and 45 helicopters that we used to facilitate our air patrols. And we had the one fixed-wing aircraft with the assistance from KPIX, which enables us to do nighttime patrols, which we intend to leverage that capability this evening due to some technology, high-res camera and infrared technology. So we're looking forward to that, and that should free up more helicopter resources that could be applied to the distribution system tomorrow. So looking forward to that progress overnight. Just to remind everybody, the helicopter resources, we do not air patrol at night via helicopter due to safety concerns. We have to fly too low and in the wired environment. And so our only leverage to patrol at night via air is through the assistance of this fixed-wing aircraft through the assistance from KPIX. So special thanks goes out to them. In terms of mutual aid resources, we did reach out to the utility community and requested mutual aid. We received approximately 300 employees that are all on the system working. They're in a patrol capacity. We've also requested heavy construction crews to help us with any damage cases that we find. And we received 6 of them, and they're working. We also requested additional helicopters. We find that the helicopter resources are very efficient for us, and we can cover miles and miles of our system via air and get that patrolled good before we restore. So huge resources for us. Requested and received about 15 to 20 additional helicopters to add to the fleet. In terms of damage cases, roughly 50 so far. And you can see a couple pictures on the slides. They vary. Wires down, poles down, trees into our facilities, and these are still trickling in. There's a number of different ways to report damage. We ask all of our employees and contractors and mutual aid partners that are on our system helping us, we have to follow a very specific protocol that once they find damage or near hits or hazards that could be removed with no damage to our equipment, for instance, like a tree branch lying across conductors that could be removed, no utility repairs necessary, but it would have been an ignition risk, and we have to clear that. We've asked those folks to follow a very deliberate process, pinpoint the lat and long portion of where the damage was found, take pictures, send it back into us. What we do with that information, we review it. We have a very robust review process to confirm that it's actual trouble and not a pre-existing condition. Some of that's a little more obvious when you have a pole down. Some may not be obvious. But nonetheless, we take that information, we send it to meteorology. Meteorology can then use GIS and pinpoint where the damage was on the system and then do a comparative analysis to what the wind speeds were in the area. And that helps us inform future forecasts, which helps us pinpoint and become more precise, so that when we use PSPS as a last resort option, we're really pinpointing.
All right, we have been listening to the latest update from PG&E, the operational update. Two kind of sections here. Let's talk about the power outage that we're currently enduring, and then Juliet, I know you have numbers as far as what's ahead. What we are enduring right now, almost 1 million customers without power. 375 to 400,000 customers have had their power restored here in the Bay Area, but 630,000 PG&E customers are still without power.
That's right, and you may remain without power in this second round. In fact, the latest numbers now saying the new shutoff is planned for tomorrow. 605,000 customers to lose power in 29 Northern California counties starting as early as tomorrow. And they were saying there are multiple red flag warnings right now throughout the Bay Area, and this second round expected to start tomorrow.
All right. And fortunately, after this next event, they don't anticipate any more. But we have more information on how to get through these public safety power shutoffs. Go to PSPS Survival Guide, KPIX.com. And Darren Peck, a check of the forecast when we come back.